Maslow's hierarchy of needs is a psychological theory proposing that human motivation progresses through 5 stages, each one dependent on the fulfillment of the last. But Maslow never lived to see a Funko Pop. He certainly never lived to see hyperfixated fandoms descend into turf wars over fictional couples. After all, his hierarchy assumes that individuals are of sound mind. Thankfully, he never lived to see the post-consumer hellscape we currently inhabit. So I now propose a thought experiment. What if you were a person whose devotion to Sailor Moon overrides every known survival instinct? The perfect PNP consumer. How long could you survive using only officially licensed Sailor Moon merchandise? At the base of the hierarchy are the most basic human needs. If your hyperfixation was unmarketable, this is where natural selection will take you. Thankfully for you, Sailor Moon was extremely marketable, and they slapped her face on a whole bunch of shit. Edible goods are the most important place to start because, unless you have a consistent supply of food and drink, you aren't gonna live long enough to ever use that Luna tea kettle. This is where the thought experiment has to get realistic. If you aren't living in Japan or actively importing from it, you're not getting very far. It isn't impossible. There are options on the international market, but the variety drops off fast. You will, however, have access to the Ocean Bomb Sailor Moon Sparkling Water set that comes in 8 bright-smelling colors. Unfortunately for you, this is now your entire liquid diet. At least you can pour it into some very nice Sailor Moon-themed tumblers and water bottles. When it comes to food, there's a lot more options for you, fortunately. If you don't mind your intake being completely processed food, but if you're committed, I don't see this slowing you down. There's the Meiji chocolate collab from 2025 that should be able to satisfy your sweet tooth. Cacao Cat also released an assortment of chocolates and cookies in themed tins. If you don't mind eating 10-year-old chips, Koikea tortilla chips also ran a promotion. If you can manage to stomach that down, that means expiration dates are merely a suggestion to you. And for a palate as refined as yours, may I recommend splurging on some nutritious Sailor Moon SpaghettiOs. If you don't mind putting in some work, since corporations have yet to find a way to copyright concepts like rice or chicken, you could always make your own Sailor Moon curry, using the branded curry mix. If your rice is still feeling a little bland, you could always slap some Sailor Moon themed furikake right on top for some variety. That's about half the major food groups right there, so I think it's safe to say food is no longer a worry. Though if you're curious, the diet would probably last you around 6 to 8 months before something would quietly stop working. But if you're feeling a little bit anemic due to your new religious dietary restrictions, Sailor Moon could at least patch up those cuts and bruises with a little moon healing escalation. Or her very own themed bandages. The one basic need you won't be struggling to find Sailor Moon branding on is clothing. Everything from novelty t-shirts to luxury designer brands exist, right down to Sailor Moon lingerie, so let's go down the list. Uniqlo, UT, Vans, Skechers, Anna Sui, Jimmy Cho, Peach John, Samantha Vega, Spins. Now that we are highly fashionable and profoundly malnourished, a combination that has single-handedly set women's health back decades, we can move on to the next tier of needs. Obviously, at this point, if you aren't already in Japan, you're gonna have to relocate. And the most obvious choice is the lovely, if prohibitively expensive, Minato Ward of Tokyo, which is technically a Sailor Moon reference if you squint, specifically Azabu Juban. Which, having stayed there myself, is not a cheap area to exist in. Don't get me wrong, it's gorgeous, and my favorite pizza place in Japan is literally a block away from where Game Center Crown used to be, but it is by no means affordable. You're gonna need a job, and in this scenario, I don't think you're mentally sound enough to live in the tunnels underneath Juban, but let's say hypothetically for the sake of argument that you can afford to live in Juban. That you can actually afford a place to stay, let alone a 4-bedroom house with a driveway on a magazine editor's salary. Then the question becomes, what would you furnish it with? There's a surprising amount of kitchen-related items, despite there being a distinct lack of food to eat with them. A lot of collector's plates, but those seem to be more of a display thing. If you ever wanted to break out the fine china for your Sailor Moon SpaghettiOs, there's a truly impressive number of bowls, which for some reason always come with chopsticks, which feels kind of fucked up. There's officially licensed Sailor Moon rice cookers, a Luna teapot, shaved ice maker, kitchen timer, whisk peeler. There's even a 7-quart slow cooker in case you need the SpaghettiOs to cook overnight to impress your colleagues. The rest of the house won't be lacking modern amenities either, thanks to the finest wall scrolls and posters vomited indiscriminately across your walls. There are a few officially licensed rugs, plastic drawer units, curtains, and even a zabuton to sit on. Don't expect much more than that. There are no officially licensed Sailor Moon sofas or coffee tables. If you don't want the house to feel completely barren, there are bedding sets and pillowcases, but if we are being strict adherents, you could always fall asleep on the cozy Sailor Moon sleeping bag. At least you won't be alone in the miserable dystopia you've built for yourself. There are plenty of officially licensed figures and plushes you can place haphazardly around the room for company. They do not help. But by a broad enough definition, they can provide a sense of love and belonging. And if Japan is unhinged enough to let a man marry Hatsune Miku, then frankly you can marry that Sailor Starfighter plush that's been making passes at you while the Mamoru Chiba plush has been away at college. I won't tell. Which leaves self-esteem, and in no conceivable universe, fictional or otherwise, are you clearing this hurdle. This is as far as you go. That's like an inherent flaw of basing your entire existence on the consumption of a medium. There is no room for any sense of self, just engorge on product vapidly until more product is made to be consumed. I guess what I'm getting at is this: if you like something, don't make it your entire personality. These companies don't care about you half as much as you care about them. If you need proof there's only enough Sailor Moon merchandise to keep you alive for 8 months, quite honestly, it sounds miserable. That's the fundamental flaw with trusting anybody who wants to monetarily profit off of you. They are incentivized to see you not as an active participant, but as a passive consumer. Go out there and create something. Be active in your fandom. That's how you keep the spirit of the things you love alive. Not by swallowing up whatever corporatized residuals happen to be wearing the skin of your passions. Don't just... Wait a second, the check cleared? I'm proud to announce this video's sponsor. Starseed Search, the newest app from our friends over at Galactica LLC. One of the most limiting factors of contemporary ancestry services is how constrained they are in scope. Most platforms can only trace your lineage back a few hundred years using rudimentary means like census data or conventional DNA analysis. With Starseed Search, your ancestry isn't confined to such small terrestrial scale. Using their proprietary Starseed mapping framework allows you to trace your lineage beyond recorded human history, beyond planetary boundaries, potentially as far back as the Sagittarius Zero star, the birthplace of the cosmos itself. But don't take my word on it. Download the Starseed Search app today and begin your celestial alignment assessment. After all, the story of your life didn't start on Earth. It started in the stars. Starseed Search. If you can't find your starseed, we most certainly will.